Now, a Johannesburg law firm, RH Lawyers Incoporated, is assisting the families of the Boksburg Blast on Christmas Eve. It's helping them file a class action lawsuit. 37 people died when a truck that got stuck under a low-level bridge carrying gas container started leaking and resulting in a massive explosion. Last week, an audit cleared Infinite Fleet Transport of non-compliance. Let's speak now to Zain Lundell, one of the lawyers involved in this lawsuit. Zain, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Thank you very much for coming in.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me.
It's not a good case to be taking on because you're dealing with people who've lost quite a lot. I mean, 37 lives lost, plus we know about the damage that happened to infrastructure. That's just, by the way, it's affected many, many people. Now, as we begin, just to remind our viewers, what is a class lawsuit? How does it differ from a normal prosecution?
So, individuals that have instructed us, I believe it's about 27 so far, have tasked us with first investigating the matter and then filing legal proceedings should the wrongful parties not come to the table and make good everything that has happened. So the difference between and why a class action is possibly on the table here is that you file a claim on behalf of all of those that are injured or have suffered some sort of harm, and you don't need to cite each individual plaintiff. The benefits of that are there are cost benefits to that, as well as the importance of having everybody banded in a single lawsuit where if you are running a particular case, there's, you get one kick at the can, but you do it properly and you don't have the risk of having other individuals filing lawsuits and potentially coming to different decisions with different judges. So it's a way to bring everybody together and, from a resource perspective, it allows a law firm to, sink a lot more resources into the case because they represent a lot more people.
Okay, but this case might be a little bit more complex because you'll have a number of bodies involved, let's call them that, a number of institutions involved.
Potential wrongdoers.
Yes, on the potential, it's not, as you said, it's not individual, but you've got a number of them.
So, I think the important thing, and what I've seen in the media is a lot of people trying to pin blame on a particular person or a particular entity. And the way the law works is that, in fact, many different entities actually may be liable, but to varying degrees. And so if there is, for example, a judgment or a damages award at the end, and the court finds that there are 2 or 3 wrongdoers in different proportions, those wrongdoers will then have to pay damages to the extent that they are liable.
Are you clear as you start this process who could be those wrongdoers in this case? In addition to, for example, I would imagine the owners of the tanker, would be included in that.
Yeah, so look, we are investigating, and I don't want to jump the gun, but from our preliminary investigations, what we see is that the tanker company certainly may be liable. They are tasked with having people available to ensure that the tanker stays en route. And if the tanker deviates from route, to immediately pick that up and to make sure that the driver has the necessary support to ensure that he or she gets back on the route that they're supposed to, but also to do so in a safe way.
But an audit has found that they complied with all the requirements.
Well, with all due respect, we don't know what sort of audit was conducted. The explosion occurred on the 24th of December. We're now in very early January. I think we need to treat that audit with the skepticism that it is required, and we will certainly look into that audit and request the documents and information that those individuals or that company used to arrive at their decision.
Are you able to tell us that of the 27 individuals that you said have briefed you in terms of this class lawsuit, if any of them are connected with any of the families that have lost 37 people, including those 12 workers at the OR Tambo Memorial Hospital?
Yes, so I believe, I know that we do represent families who have lost loved ones. We represent children, unfortunately, who have lost, mothers and fathers. And it's a difficult thing to be a part of, but we're definitely giving them all the support.
As I said at the beginning, this is a very tough kind of case you're having on your hand. Okay, so what's going to be happening next? Now you're telling us that you've been approached, you've been briefed by 27 individuals regarding this matter. What is the next steps now in this class lawsuit?
Yeah, so, our law firm is well versed in running cases which require resources put into them. Obviously, these families, don't really have the resources. They've just either lost loved ones or unable to work because they're injured. So we are working on a no-win, no-fee basis. And what we do is we sink the financial resources as a firm into the case to make sure we do proper and thorough investigations. And once we finalize that, which I anticipate will take a month or two, once we finalize that, we then approach the companies with the full set of facts and a proper understanding of what has occurred. We make certain demands on behalf of our clients, and if those companies or those wrongdoers are not forthcoming with their responses in a manner that we're satisfied with, we then proceed to file legal proceedings against those entities.
So there's a lot of things to do before you get to that point where it ends up in a court.
Yes, of course, you don't want to file a lawsuit unnecessarily. If parties are willing to accept the responsibility of what they've done, which I really hope they will, then settlement is always better than moving towards legal proceedings and going to court.
Yeah. Do you have an idea at this stage what the families will be looking to get? You've mentioned a very important point I don't want to lose. You said you're also representing young people, or children who've lost a parent or two.
Yeah, so quantifying claims generally requires expert evidence, and that expert evidence are medical professionals and actuaries and accountants who come together and interview clients and assess their damages. It's not something that I can put a pin on right now, but certainly a case of this magnitude will run into the millions of rands for sure.
Okay, by when do you think you'll be able to have done your investigation and concluded and have a firm document in hand to approach whom you would have identified as the potential or alleged wrongdoers? Yeah,
so we've put together a strong team at the firm. And we've got internal deadlines. One of those is to try and do all the preliminary investigation within a month and a half. Whether that takes longer remains to be seen. But the goal is first to make sure the preliminary investigation is done, and after that, send out the letters of demand. And
so a month and a half or so?
A month and a half to
possibly.
2 months. That's what I think is reasonable. But of course, if further information comes to the light that requires us to do further investigation, that will need to be done.
Yeah. Any precedent here in South Africa that you're relying on as you're putting this case together?
Well,
from a class lawsuit, yeah?
Well, it's interesting. There's actually a very interesting Canadian case, not a South African case, a Canadian case where a train carrying fuel basically had stopped near a town, Lac Megantic. That train was not secured properly, rolled down a hill, derailed, and unfortunately that train exploded and that entire town or a large part of the town was wiped out. That's a case that we're looking to as some guidance as to what we need to do here. But of course there are a lot of South Africa specific and Gauteng specific things that we need to look at.
So you need to settle when you get to that point for the people, the families you're representing from Boksburg with a different identifier. So each of the alleged wrongdoer will be approached separately.
Well, it all depends on what we think the best manner to approach these parties will be. It might be together, it might be separately, but I think for now the most important thing is to ensure that the families that we're assisting get the best legal representation possible, and to ensure that the facts are truly and properly understood. This concept of an audit clearing a party of liability, about 2 weeks after the incident, I think that's something we need to be careful of. We need to properly investigate that. We need to make sure that these families are not kind of blindsided by individuals or entities that don't want to take responsibility for what they've done.
I know, Zain, you come from a legal firm, but I just want to end our conversation with a human question. How are the families doing? I mean, they're briefing your firm, they're talking to you, you're interacting even some of those young ones who've lost an adult.
Yeah, no, look, it's a difficult line of business. It's tragic what has happened to these people, but I think myself and my team take a tremendous amount of pride in the work we do. Our firm helps injured victims all the time, not just in this case but in others, and we help them with the compassion that they deserve. This is work that we're really looking forward to doing properly for them.
I guess compassion is going to have to be your kind of driver in terms as you proceed with this legal case. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming through this afternoon on Today. That's Zain Lundell from the Johannesburg law firm RH Lawyers Incorporated.